I just want to say thank you for coming to our fireside chat. And the topic today would be how to effectively launch and scale your cannabis brand. My name is Jaime Cacheiro. I'm the Vice President of K-Zen. And I'm thrilled to introduce Judy Yee. Judy has been 25 years in the food and beverage space, and she has worked in as such brands as Crystal Geyser, Earthbound Farms, and of course Untitled Chapter, one of my favorites. In 2019, she founded K-Zen and has a portfolio of products from, as was mentioned, our low dose 5 milligram, 5 THC CBD Mad Lily spritzers, and our 100 milligram multi-dose S shots. Judy, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Jaime. Good to be here.
Awesome. You want to tell?
Yes. Well, first of all, it's so great to be here. I mean, this is like the second annual Drink Expo, and I know the attendance is only growing. And you know, one of the things I think about, like 3 years ago or 2.5 years ago when I started the company, you know, people would say like, this is an industry, right? And even back then, you know, I think I can count on one hand maybe the number of brands that was Cannabis Beverage brands, and you know, and now we could name like 10s and 20s, right? And so it's really exciting to finally be at this place, at a precipice where it's going to take off. And just a quick background on me, you know, so I started the cannabis company really out of my own personal journey. You know, I think you heard from Tracy earlier, you know, there's a kind of curious consumer, and that was me. You know, I really did not come into it as a consumer until 5 years ago, when I was, you know, looking for a better solution to my health and wellness routine, and you know, at the advice of my trusted friends and my husband, said, you know what, give cannabis a try, and you can actually now try it not just from smoking but from other formats. And so at the time I was at Crystal Geyser, and I was in charge of innovation and product development. I got curious with cannabis also from that standpoint, you know, from a product formulation, from an industry standpoint. And I thought, gosh, you know, if someone like me who's coming into it at such a late stage in, you know, his or her life, there's got to be so many more people like myself that would be open to adopting cannabis if it was offered in a more discreet and familiar format. And drinking, as you know, is, you know, an occasion we all do multiple times a day. And it's also, think about, you know, it's a format that people have used to try new ingredients, to try and adopt new behavior. Think about 5 Hour Energy, kombucha, turmeric. Those are all ingredients and products that we probably never even heard of like 10 plus years ago, and now they're multi-billion-dollar industries. So that really was kind of the intersection for me with my own journey in cannabis, and also what I was seeing in the marketplace and what's possible in the industry to really take cannabis into a whole new, you know, format and be that bridge into mainstream, and bring the 2/3 of Americans that haven't really adopted cannabis in their lives to be something that they can consider.
Amazing. So I came also from, you know, I used to work at Kraft Foods and also at Pfizer. You know, I used to make Cool Whip, Capri Sun, Jello, and then also moved over to making Centrum vitamins, and you know, and had a lot of like technical knowledge that, you know, at the same day, you know, cannabis is, you know, we need that in this industry. So when I came out here to California, I had an opportunity to meet Judy by happen chance, and we connected, and I thought I could help out K-Zen. And then my personal stories, you know, with cannabis is just like, you know, this is a great plant, but I'm not a smoker, but I still want to enjoy it. And I think with what we're doing now today, we can make it repeatable, we can make it taste good, and we can make it safe. And I think that's really important. Yeah. So let me start with the first question. What do you see as some of the differences and similarities to the CPG beverage space versus the cannabis space?
Wow, there's quite a bit, right? So end of the day, this is a consumer product. And consumer is always the boss, right? And he or she should be the center of the wheel in everything you do. So really understanding, who is that consumer? What is his and her journey with cannabis? It's so different, right? Between, I'm sure all of us here sit in the room, what was your first experience and where you are today and what you prefer, it varies wildly. So you got to understand, where the consumer is at today and also who is it that you are trying to target. Once you identify that, then it's really around, understanding like what their belief is, right? What are their need states and problems? Because you're not going to be able to really drive that sales and that loyalty with the consumer if you don't understand him or her intimately as possible. And so those are all principles that that CPG companies have done really well. That's why you hear iconic brands like Coca-Cola, and people having long-lasting loyalty to it is because they've developed a brand that truly understands the consumer and what they need and when they need it. And so that is no different for cannabis. In fact, as those of you who heard Tracy in the beginning of the day today, it's around the education is even more important than anything else in other CPG spaces because there is either bad experiences people may have had in the past, or they just simply don't know who to go to for that information. And so that kind of education and understanding your role in that process, just like any CPG brands, is what you need to bring into this industry, and the tactics are the same, and so I think that is really where some of the similarities are. The other thing is, end of the day, it's a product you're putting in your stomach, right? And you're ingesting it. And so it's just simply got to taste good. That's the fundamental business of a product, right? That's like food and bev. And so if you think about that, what's important when you're a food and bev product is what is your first moment of truth? And that is, hey, before I even have tried this product, it's sitting there on the shelf or it's sitting on the online menu, does it speak to me? Is it for me? Does it sound good? Do I understand what it is? Do I understand what it's going to do for me? Does it sound like it tastes amazing? That is really important in terms of what we need to do, as a cannabis industry, is whatever we're designing, everything from the packaging to the branding to the graphics we use to the instructions we have on our labels, and then obviously when they open the product, right? So all the logistics, all the functional benefits of packaging is super important. How the product looks, how it smells. So even before you drink it, it's like the entire sensory experience is super important, right? So that is like the first moment of truth. And then when you drink it, it's like, okay, does it meet my expectation? If it says passion fruit mango, am I getting that? And by the way, they said that they're not going to taste any weed notes. Am I getting that, right? So really paying off on what you're promising is that second moment of truth is also important. And that is what's going to get repeat sales. I think in this industry, we'll get lots of, novelty, right? Trials, it sounds interesting. Never tried this before. But what's going to get a business to grow and flourish is the repeat sales, right? And so delivering on that payoff is super important. And one of the things we've done at K-Zen from day one is we, act as if we are an FDA compliant industry and company day one. So here's the testing requirements, for COA potency. We're like, okay, not only are we going to do that, we're going to take it up a notch. And as if we need to meet all the sensory, microbial, all those things that is needed. And in fact, that's kind of the role that Jaime has brought, to our company, is what he has experienced at Kraft and Pfizer, being both regulated industry as pharma and sensory-driven company like Kraft, and marrying that and creating really good, SOPs, and also bringing that to the partners that we're working with. So I'll let Jaime speak to a little bit of that.
Yeah, no, I think, especially for the similarities, you still have to go through the same product life cycle. You have your idea creation, you have your, your product development, and then you have to bring it out to market. And then you have to distribute it and then sell it. So But I think the difference is, mostly with my past time at Pfizer and everything else, is that this is a very nascent industry. We're new. It's only 2, maybe 3 years old that we were out there. And a lot of the times I feel that we're building the plane and flying it at the same time. The legislation is sometimes not as strong or maybe too strong. Like, for example, like the reason that a lot of our packaging is in opaque packaging is just because they put us underneath the edibles category. This is a drink at the end of the day. And if you look at liquor or anything else, there's no need for that, but we are to do that. So, and also, I think one of the benefits that we've actually done, like I joined the CBA as a CBA board member, which is the Cannabis Beverage Association, and we have to be able to work together to actually make that change. So we were able to get one of the senators, Francis Chen, to actually get us to actually co-author a bill, and in January you won't need to have opaque packaging for cannabis, beverage drinks specifically. Yeah.
Is it opaque?
Opaque, basically not,
Okay.
yeah, not be able to see it.
Yeah.
But these regulations we're still growing, and I think one of your biggest issues is with marketing. I think, right, Judy?
Yeah, I mean, I think, much like alcohol, but much more restricting is the regulatory part of the industry. And, with beverages and drinks, as one of the most important things is to have that experience, right? To create that new habit, to create that familiar memory that brings you back to a place that makes you happy and what you look forward to, and you'll want to repeat that over and over again, which we all associate with alcohol and some drink of some sort. For cannabis beverages, we need to find that. And because of regulations right now, you can't really go anywhere to consume on site. Now, regulations changing, we have great cannabis lounges opening up, but it's not as accessible in places where people have that impulse moment, right? So that is going to change, but it's going to take some time. So in absence of that, that is what we have to think about: is how do we work around these regulations around marketing? And I think that's what makes this industry exciting, is because of those regulations. People have gotten super creative with how do we drive those awareness, how do we create the trial, and create those experiences. So I think one of the benefits of the pandemic, honestly, is people have created those experiences at home with in-home delivery, right? That's one of the flourishing points of the cannabis industry, at least in California, online delivery went through the roof. And if you look at, like, for example, Ease, which is an online platform here in California, they said their number of new users grew by threefold in terms of their total users coming into their space. And in fact, of the new users, I think it was more than half are edible users. They tried with edibles, including drinks. And so that was a huge turning point. And that is kind of where we need to continue to put the pressure, is to be able to have people create those experiences at home until regulations kind of catch up to you. So that is, I would say, a difference in cannabis, unlike CPG or alcohol, is we don't have the ability to have those moments to be able to experiment in a public, sociable way, other than your home or other than some private location. But there's so many great ideas that are out there where people are creating those experiences, and it's only going to get better.
Yeah, absolutely. So you mentioned the users, the cannabis users. How there's a wide range between, smoking, edibles, and drinks, and high and low. How did you come up with your product strategy to actually to get those cannabis drink users out there?
So I think I mentioned what the similarities are around, the consumer is the center of the wheel. So that's what we did when we first started K-Zen. I had a lot of hypotheses, had my own opinions about the consumer and the marketplace, but literally after we started the company, the next month we went on this listening tour. We kind of grouped customer groups based on what we think are similarities, whether not just demographics, but their attitude, their usage, their barriers, and then also what their desires are with cannabis, the who, why, what, when, how, why nots, and went into consumers' homes, workplaces, to really like listen to them, right, and observe them. And what I came out of it was like, most of what I thought was like not true. And I had to like, completely surrender and put away what I thought and really kind of start from the ground up and say, okay, this is the consumer demographics and the segmentation. Let's match that against market data, so headset, BDS. And, and what is the market today? Where do we think it's going to go the next 2, 3, 4 years? And then therefore, who do we target? And what products and needs and benefits are we trying to design? And so that's kind of what informed, at least at K-Zen, why we have a portfolio. We do have the 100 milligram drink. To me, that is like an entry point into the industry, right? If you think about it, at least in California, the main place to buy cannabis, legal cannabis, is still dispensaries and online platforms. And right now, over 50% of the consumers that go to those stores, maybe even more on a daily basis, are still your legacy, daily user. They go there because they know what they need. They've done it for years. And so beverages is a consideration for them now. Why wouldn't we want to deliver a product that meets their needs? So the other thing too is you think about the buyers, the budtenders, most of them are from that experience. That's their lifestyle. That is their history, right? So to appeal to them and to get them to even try to carry products, you got to relate to them on their level. It's a product that they can actually say, I drink or I tried. So having a product that can easily go into that space and be relevant and connect with that core user was super important for us. So that's kind of one of the reasons we went in that space. And then separately, the kind of curious, everyone's talked about this, low dose. That mainstream user is definitely tomorrow's user. They're coming in droves. And so you got to find a way to appeal to them. Now, they might not be the moneymaker for your business day one, but it is a way to diversify your portfolio, so you can have a book of business that is addressing, those kind of two different groups and still be able to drive and grow the business for today, but also drive it for tomorrow. And so that's kind of our strategy and what we did, and it's paid off. We get data from our partner Ease, and we get, literally like every day I get zip code data, trial and repeat data, consumer demographic data, who are the users, do they intersect? And guess what? They don't intersect that much, which is great because that's kind of exactly what our intention was. And in fact, we also look at our repeat sales, and it's been super strong, like over 50% of our average monthly sales are from repeat users. So that tells me, number one, we're targeting right. Number two, we got the right value proposition. And three, the product is paying off in its experience in both taste and the effects, right? So that's kind of what we did, to really figure out where to play and how we're going to win day one.
Yeah, I remember doing those iconographies and just, different types of groups too, like from, and everyone wanted something differently, And I think also, like, if you look at the headsets data too, you see the lower THC drinks and then the higher THC drinks. There's a big trough in the middle. But one of the things that I try to do is just try to get the product strategy underneath that is to, people like that iconic brand, like Coke. You have the ability to always, wherever you go, it tastes exactly the same. So, we've developed SOPs to make sure that you do your BCC results, your C of A's, but it doesn't look at, the sensory aspect of it. How's the aroma, how's the color, and how's the taste, and how's the aftertaste too. And then you want to make sure that you consistently, wherever you're producing it, it tastes exactly the same and over timeline. We also look at potency over time, and then, and this is how we make this a very safe and effective product, but also that tastes good. So,
yeah, I would say one thing that you brought to at least the company is you've established a really good protocol for sensory evaluations, right? So that it doesn't matter if Jaime's tasting it or I'm tasting it or Mike Ramirez is tasting it. We've got a common language that helps us evaluate it over time. And I think we do it like every month, right? So we have like a production we produced like last September. We're still tasting every month on those dimensions because, again, it goes back to having consistent experience, right? You want when someone picks up that product, no matter if it's like, hey, this is day 30 and it tastes amazing, smells great, and then day 300, it's like, whoa, like, is this still the same product? And so that is, I think an important thing. It's not required right now by the industry whatsoever. But I think if all of you, all of us who are putting products out in the marketplace, that is important. And I urge everyone to keep that benchmark really high, because that is what's going to also set the industry forward, is always exceeding that expectation, and also not just doing what's required, at the cannabis regulatory level.
Yeah, absolutely. So in the interest of time, I'm going to combine the last two questions. So what are some of the lessons learned, and what's some advice you would like to give to our lovely guests here?
Yeah, well, I just had a talk last night, and so many things came back to me. Someone asked me, like, hey, what did you learn when you first started this company? I'll speak to it from both, just as a startup, but also obviously cannabis drinks as a category. I think first and foremost, this is a startup advice for anyone, but definitely for cannabis drinks, is define your culture of your company day one, right? Because what you stand for, and why you're doing what you're doing needs to be super clear. And if you're clear on that, you're going to bring in, that first, second, third, fourth person on your team that is going to have that shared, common vision and value. Because guess what? It gets hard, right? Things are going to fail. Things are not going to work out. And we're going to, there's going to be lots of trials and tribulations. What keeps the company going, at least in my experience, is that tribe that has that shared, goal and that shared kind of ethos. And because as a startup, especially with cannabis drinks, it's the pace of growth and the pace of change, and then is like crypto. I mean, like I talk to people a lot. Like, what's a similar technology? It's in terms of how dynamic and volatile it's like, kind of like crypto, but much more exciting than crypto, though. Much more delightful, that is. But that is, that's kind of like the trajectory of cannabis drinks, and you're going to need people to be on the same bus with you throughout that. And so I think that's really important. Day one is to be super clear on that and be very choiceful in who you bring on your team. The other thing is, think about what you are as a company, and also yourself and the people on your team. Like, what are you guys going to be really good at? Because you can't be good at distribution and supply chain and branding and marketing, and so where are you going to outsource, and what you're going to really own and go deep and develop and invest in, right? And that might change over time, right? It might be year one, I'm going to be like, this is what I'm about. Year two, I'm going to do this. But be clear on that roadmap. I know we all have like financial projections we put together when we start a company, but lay that not just with numbers, but lay that with capabilities, skill set, resources. Outsource, invest. And then the other bucket of resources, don't forget, is advisory boards, advisors. Like, I don't know how many advisors I've got on my company over time that's been so invaluable. So for example, we have Wooly Brown, who is the ex-mayor of San Francisco. He's our advisor from a governmental relations standpoint. He's one of the early cannabis supporters. Being like the former head of Harborside. So very early on, I'm not going to have the time nor the expertise or the money to be really in deep in that, but maybe there's someone that I could turn to who could be that voice and who could be that counsel for me. So so I chose that early on. And then the other one is alcohol and spirits. So I've got someone in New York. She's been with Diageo, Constellation Brands, so on. And so kind of think about what are going to be those zones for you where you're like, I don't need to bring on a full-time person, but I can find someone that's going to advise me and create enablement for my organization over time. So those are kind of like the two things I would say from a culture and resource and people and enablement standpoint. The other one is just having like relentlessness, tenacity. In cannabis, people, I'm sure you guys all heard this, right? 1 week of cannabis is like, a year in normal industry. And so you got to be ready and almost like expect and build your business model that you're going to pivot. Things are going to take longer and might take more resources to do so. So build in those contingency plans, build in those failures. And when I say failures, it's not negative. It's failures as part of like learning, right? And so rapid prototyping, whether it's your product, rapid prototyping, whether it's your business model, rapid prototyping, if it's your partnerships that you're trying out, on both ways. And so being agile in all those aspects, build that into your business day one, because it is definitely going to happen. And enjoy the ride, right? So it's, things don't go right. It's not because of what you're doing or what you don't know, or it is part of the industry, and it's part of how we are going to grow. And so I think having that mentality and expectation is going to also carry you through, through all the different chapters of growth.
Yeah. And for me, my lessons learned is, definitely around how we set it up. Like, you can't do this by yourself. You need your food scientists, your product development team, your commercialization. We use a process authority to bring it, because like you can make the beverage that tastes great, and then when you go to commercialize, every single time when you scale up, something goes always a little awry. Your infusion partner, because now you made this great tasting beverage, but once you add the infusion technology to it, something can go wrong, and a lot of times they do. Your manufacturing, what capabilities do they have? You're going to do a bottle, you're going to do a can, you're going to do a wine bottle. It's going to be carbonated. What's your Brix levels? What's your microbial levels? We're not as lucky to just go to any co-packer. We have to use a cannabis drink co-packer, and that's really hard. So you're not going to see pasteurization tunnels, maybe somewhat soon, hopefully. But like some of the normal things you'll see in normal CPG land. So, and then the last thing is probably, now you made the product and you figured out all your procurement, and you've been hearing all the supply chain issues with glass and and with cans and everything else. So you have to make sure that you can actually get everything, and also trying to buy stuff too. So we've actually encountered issues that some people just won't sell to us because we're a cannabis company. So just be careful with that. And then the last thing, now you have this thing, and then it's like, oh wow, I forgot the shippers. So and then you have to distribute it and then sell it. So those are the things that are out there. So
yeah, and I would also add, like I forgot to say this. In the end of the day, we all can recall brands that we love, right? That endured over time. Is because those brands created meaning in our lives, right? So from a advice and just kind of like learnings, that's what we have, right? Things might change over time in terms of your business models, but what's not going to change is the brand that you're developing and investing in over time. And really, first of all, trademark it. Don't launch a brand that you can't trademark, because that is part of your IP, right? And so that's, one of the things that I laugh about, like people ask me how do I come up with some of the names. I'm like, well, actually it's both like a creative process and a trademark process, because it's that important. And then the other thing is, your distribution partner, or if you're doing it yourself, is super critical. I've been at an ice cream company. There's a reason why DSD matters, is because, you got to maintain that product integrity through the cold chain. Why is Coca-Cola iconic? It's because they're actually a DSD company first, right? And so if you can't do your own distribution, your distro partner is going to make or break your business, not just in terms of product delivery and being at the shelf at the right time with the right level of service, but just continuing to be that representation of your brand, because you're not going to be at and so finding that partner and investing in that partner and growing together is going to be important. And I have to say right now in California, I call it like Cannabis Beverage 3.0 is the distribution retail side. There's been a great, advancements in the infusion technology, as you guys are hearing. But on that side, I think there's some players that are coming up strong and have great vision from a category management standpoint. But we're still building the blocks there, and so I'm very excited for what's to come there, because I think that is going to be the next kind of unleashment of this industry so that it can be the Cokes, it can be the Budweisers, is because you got strong brands and strong distribution together. So
That's awesome.
Thank you. I mean, look at Body Armor, right?
Yeah.
Like the news of Body Armor is like, whoa, like how, like if you think about Body Armor, I mean, what's inside is not that much different, right, than some of the other drinks like Gatorade. But what they've done is built a great brand. So that is for is make sure that you continue to invest in that brand that you guys are building.
Well, thank you, Judy. I think we're out of time. But
okay.
if not, we'll be around the floor all day if you guys have any other questions. So.
Thank you.
All right.